Okay, so I'd like to talk about um, a project that I'm working on for my research methods class. And this project is inspired by my own desire in Japan to break into a university teaching role. I've been here for almost 17 years. I've done just about everything. I've worked in kindergarten, I've worked in elementary school, I've worked in junior high school, I've worked in high school, multiple years at all levels. I've worked at companies, Toyota, I've Mitsubishi. I have my own school. It's called a Eikaiwa English Conversation School. I've worked at big Eikaiwas English Conversation Schools, and I've actually worked at universities, but not in a teaching role. So it's one of my desires to break in. Uh, so earlier this year, after getting my master's, started doing some preliminary research. Would a doctorate be, um, you know, worth it? To live in Japan, to get a doctorate from here. Uh, would I have opportunity to get into university? So this study is a result of that, and it's called "On Becoming a Ronin: Breaking into a Full-Time Part-Timer Teaching Role at University in Japan." So, what is a Ronin? A Ronin is a wanderer or a drifter, uh, and it was the masterless samurai. So the samurai who had lords who died, those were Ronin, uh, and this was until the Meiji Restoration. But recently, or I shouldn't say recently, but in since World War II, uh, Ronin is used to uh, describe students who aren't able to enter university in Japan, and the exam tests are very difficult. For example, if you want to go to Tokyo University, you have to compete with the best of the best, and um, even if you have a perfect score, you may not be able to get in. But if you wait a year, study even harder, um, you might be able to improve in areas that you weren't so good in. Those students are called Ronin. So you see, this is a famous story. So what's a Ronin teacher? Ronin teacher, recently, these are called English teachers that work at university, and they're technically part-timers. Uh, and in America, they'd be considered adjuncts. Uh, and here they'd be called lecturers. And they end up working at many universities, not just one. And most of their work is temporary, so it's only year to year. Um, so there's always a possibility to continue the next year. And there is an historical basis. After World War II, many um, I think it was two-thirds of the teachers, uh, not just English teachers, but two-thirds of all the university teachers in Japan were Ronin. So um, they worked at multiple universities. Uh, they would even do research, uh, but they weren't affiliated just with one university. However, nowadays that's not the case. An overwhelming majority of teachers at university, Japanese teachers at university, are tenured. Um, and after they retire, they take on part time roles. So the Ronin teacher today would be the English teacher that moves around. And here is an example of a Ronin teacher. So, what's the story for this study? In other words, why does this matter? So, looking at some questions here. So, the question is, do you want to teach university in Japan? If it's yes, this is important. Um, and is being a Ronin the most common way to teach? Um, so this is also um, important to know because uh, if you want to work at university, you need to know what are the conditions for working at university, um, and are those conditions suitable to you? If so, how can you become one? So the first question: do you want to teach university in Japan? Um, if you're already teaching here, you realize that the salaries are pretty low in general. And I shouldn't say, I guess it's all relative, depends on where you come from. Um, but on average, if you're teaching English full time, you're going to make probably around $25,000 a year. Of course, it's in yen, and it's not going to change. It's probably not going to fluctuate. I've been here nearly 17 years, and salaries have actually kind of gone down. But because of inflation, the lack of inflation, um, you know, and because of the living conditions here, where you can get by on a low salary, um, it's doable. But you can't really start a family. So working at university is a larger increase in salary, could be double what you're making as a Kawa teacher or ALT. ALTs are teachers that work in the public schools. You also have longer vacations, so you don't have to, work during the summer usually. Uh, you know, Late winter, early spring, there's time off. I'm not sure exactly how many extra days you have, but there's a lot more. You also have a lot more freedom. If you're working at university, it's going to be pretty rare that someone actually observes your lesson here. Uh, as an Eikaiwa teacher or working somewhere else, uh, there's always someone looking over your shoulder. You have usually yearly by uh, uh, you know observations twice a year. But as a university teacher, you don't really have that. However, there's a bureaucracy. There's a lot of red tape. Um, there's a hierarchy at university that uh, you may not see in America. I'm not sure about other countries, but it's a little bit different here. Um, and you're going to need to speak some Japanese, especially if you want a stable job. You're going to have to be pretty good Japanese speaker. And these jobs are, because of the benefits, as we see, there's a lot more competition. So it really comes down to, um, what do you value most, whether or not you want to do this. So I had to, look at data. I can't just give my opinion. I looked at public data um, from LinkedIn, also ResearchGate, um, another research site in Japan, Research Map, and I looked at some university websites from last month until now, and I collected um, data on 150 people, actually more, but I can't use all of that data for various reasons because a lot of it's incomplete. Um, so yeah, if you're a teacher here in Japan, I may have looked at your LinkedIn, so that's me. So this question, is being a Ronin the most common way to teach university in Japan? Looking at the data, I'd say yes. You see, uh, the lecturer, which is the adjunct, is kind of the entry level uh, teaching role at university. And you have assistant professor. Assistant professor in Japan is not tenure track. So assistant professor in Japan is like a full-time adjunct or full-time lecturer. Um, So a little bit different from America, where I'm from. Associate professor is tenure track. So these are people who, um, after a certain number of years, I think it's 5 or 10, they're guaranteed, pretty much guaranteed, a lifetime appointment. It's just the same with all companies in Japan, not just universities. It's called Seishine. So if you're a regular employee after a certain number of years, uh, basically it's almost impossible to get fired. Of course, you can get fired, but it's very difficult. Okay, professor. These would be people in Japan. These are people that actually uh, lead departments or lead a team. Uh, and this is where some of the data gets a little sketchy, is because it's coming from LinkedIn mostly. Um, I do believe that this number is not accurate. I think that, like in my country, you can say you're a professor and you could be an adjunct. So I think we should, if we're looking at it from the Japanese uh, definition of professor, we must maybe discount um, this high number. So in this study, I'm just kind of focusing on the lecturer, assistant professor role, and associate professor role. And now we're going to see people that work at multiple universities. Remember, Ronin are people, are teachers that aren't just at one university. They're moving around, and you can see how an overwhelming number uh, of those that move around are lecturers. You do have assistant professors, associate professors, and this is a hint at professors, that the hint that maybe these aren't, uh, you know, full-time, tenured professors, is, some of these are moving around. So, but the number is quite low. So uh, I'd have to get into some data analytics, but I just don't have enough numbers right now to do that. Uh, but it doesn't look like um, there is a big, well, it does look like there is uh, some of these in the professor role that maybe aren't professors. Um, so should we be a Ronin? And I'd say it depends on your education. So if you're going to, you know, if you want to work at university, uh, you're going to need a master's degree. Um, but you got to think about this: there's no job security. The It's a year-to-year contract. They can fire you at any time. I know of some cases recently where, because of the pandemic, um, teachers, uh, didn't have jobs, and in some cases, like if your class isn't popular, like if people don't sign up for your class, if you don't have a minimum number, you lose that job, and you not only that, you lose the money. Um, so compared to other positions, like a full-time position, you are looking at a little bit lower salary. Um, and like I said, you need a master's degree to do this. And it should be in linguistics or TESOL, according to the data. And you can see here, this is the highest earned degree of all the teachers that I looked at. Uh, and the bachelor's degree is very low. So uh, to work at university, you're going to most definitely need a master's degree. And what you study, here, you can see the data, is most of the people are studying linguistics or, TESOL, teaching English as teaching English as speakers of other languages. The second most is education. So you have, uh, you know, humanities, which uh, is a collection of, uh, you know, social sciences, anthropology. Um, you know, I've thrown in even mathematics. I've thrown in there. Um, you have art and you have English. So to be a teacher at university, um, the best way is to have a degree in TESOL. So how do you become a Ronin? How do you become one of these masterless teachers? Get a master's, study TESOL, and then there's a 3-and-3 rule, which is basically you need 3 years of experience uh, working at a university and 3 three publications. So this is uh, at the high end. If you don't have uh, this, published articles, or you don't have a lot of experience, you can still get on as a part-time lecturer. However, if you're going to, support yourself just as a lecturer, you're going to need some published articles because you're going to need many jobs, right? So you're going to need more experience in order to get hired by other universities. There's just some issues with this, with in general, um, with the situation is uh, Japanese universities are beginning to teach a lot of classes in English, and they're advertising themselves through EMI, English as a medium of instruction, uh, to cater to a lot of foreign students. And the reason for this, I don't have the numbers here, but the reason for this is that the population of Japan, the student population, is decreasing, and um, for a while, but not in the last 10 years, uh, the number of universities in Japan has been increasing. It's a little bit counterintuitive, where you have the student population is going down, but you have more universities, so there's more competition. The reason for this is a lot of universities are trying to attract students from other countries, and you do have some universities that have very high numbers of foreign students studying there. And these students are likely studying in English. So um, this is an issue where, uh, you know, studying just for a TESOL degree uh, may not prepare you to teach students that already have a pretty high degree of fluency in English and are studying not TESOL, but or I'm sorry, are studying not just English communication, but are studying literature, for example. Also, the future is clouded, so to work at university to support yourself. Look what happened with this pandemic. We don't really know what's going to happen, um, and uh, so is it promising? I do think there is some promise here, and in Japan, um, the promised land is, we call it the Holy Grail, and that's being able to work at a university full time. Uh, so what does this other data tell us? you know, of course, the degrees, linguistics degrees, TESOL degrees are the majority. But there's also a chance that you can get tenure, but a doctorate is needed. Um, and this is what's interesting is your doctorate can be in anything, not just TESOL or linguistics. And you can do it all from Japan. So you can come over here with a bachelor's degree in business, and you can eventually become a professor. Looking at the discipline of the or the major of the highest degree, uh, we see that 75%, nearly 75%, are in TESOL and education, which is expected because of just you know all the students that study at university in Japan must take basic English 1 or 2 years, depending on their major. But it is a core requirement, and that's why so many of the teachers here focus on linguistics. We also see some humanities, social sciences, computers, business in there. And then for longer term employment, not being a Ronin, but what being a Ronin can lead you to is getting full-time employment. So I looked at um, the data of the assistant professors, and you can see here that, okay, so remember, assistant professors are not tenured. So these are people that are full-time lecturers, basically. The numbers are quite low. The data sample is quite low. However, none of them had doctorates. And even one of them had a bachelor's. So it is, possible to get a full-time teaching role, um, you know, with just a master's degree. So this would be a kind of a step up, I guess, if you wanted something more stable than being a Ronin, this would be a step up. On the right side, you see the associate professors, and these, remember, these are tenure track. So these are, you know, professors that are working full time, that have a guaranteed job, uh, and most of them have a doctorate, but it's not overwhelming. If you go to America and you go to any university, unless it's a community college, but if you go to a university, you're going to see very few professors, tenured professors with just a master's degree. And even at a community college, you may not see any of them with a master's. So here you can see that there are a fair number, nearly half, with just a master's, not a doctorate. The other interesting thing is the high number of education degrees, which, the difference between an EDD and a PhD is an EDD is focused on education, and not just that, but usually as an administrative function, um, curriculum development function. Um, PhD, of course, would be the focus on the research. And, in the last, 30 years, PhDs are also trained as teachers, with their assistantships, for example. Um, so this is what's interesting is in Japan, quite a few of the, professors teaching English, um, or lecturers teaching English. Well, these would be mostly professors or tenure track professors, have um, a fair number have an education degree. Uh, and I'm not sure, I have some ideas why this could be the case, but and then looking at the discipline, it's a little bit more varied. We see, of course, linguistics for the doctoral uh, degree discipline and education. But the humanities and science, they also have a fair number of representation here. So this tells me that basically you can have uh, a doctorate in anything. Looking at the major field, this data is interesting because we don't see linguistics. I know that with undergraduate study, there is a field you can study linguistics. It's in the English department. Uh, with the data, I did see some people that said English, but it said linguistics. So if it said linguistics, I didn't put them in the humanities. Um, so anyone that had any kind of linguistics training, I put over here primarily. So there's hardly anybody. What this tells me, and looking at the number of humanities degrees, what this tells me is that most people come over here to teach. They don't have an education degree. Look at the education numbers, very low. They come over here to teach without an education degree, probably just for a year to see Japan, and then they stay on, and they eventually make their way to university, and an overwhelming majority of those have humanities backgrounds. And I think this is where EMI gets interesting. EMI with English as a medium of instruction, universities focusing on attracting international students. They do have professors that have studied in the humanities that do have a background For example, if they're teaching psychology, for example, EMI, teaching psychology class in English, uh, they may have a degree in psychology, um, uh, but they may not have a PhD. So this is, kind of my hypothesis uh, that I'm making is I need some more data. I need some more qualitative data. I need to contact some of these individuals and ask them more to find out. But this is really interesting how you can see that if you come to Japan, uh, with just a bachelor's in anything, could be in business. As you can see, the second highest is business. You can eventually make your way to university as an English teacher. These are all teachers of English that I've gotten data on. There are a number of problems with the study. I've mentioned some already. The data is incomplete, not enough numbers, and I need to refine my methods. Uh, I didn't outline them here in this presentation, but this is one of the problems. And there's like some misleading information because I'm getting this from publicly available data. I need to actually do some more studies to like some surveys and things like that to throw out some of the false data, which I'm sure my study has. Um, okay, so basically, I conclude that you used to be able to come to Japan with a bachelor's degree and work at university. Those days are long gone. Um, a lot of those guys have already, retired, and uh, but it's pretty rare. So if you want to teach university, you're going to need a master's degree. And also, if you're starting out, unless you come here with a doctorate degree, you're gonna likely need to be a Ronin teacher, even to get full-time lecturer, assistant professor job. You're gonna need 3 years of experience. So uh, those 3 years, you'll need to support yourself. So uh, you'll have to be working at many universities, and that may be tough if you don't have publications. So if you have 3 and 3, the 3 years of experience, or sorry, if you have even in your country 3 years of experience, as an adjunct and 3 publications, you can likely fill up your schedule as a running teacher. But if you want a stable job, you're going to need a doctorate. Um, and your doctor can be in anything, I do believe. Uh, and this is based on some data from the government regarding the direction of teaching subjects in English. Um, and another conclusion is you can do it all from Japan. So uh, as a follow-up, a lot of the information I got can be found in this textbook or handbook published last year. This is the second edition. The first edition was published a few decades ago. So the authors of this have uh, uh, pretty much covered every single base. I don't know these people. I'm not supporting them, but I am promoting their book because it is very useful if you want to teach university. And this is where I've got a lot of my information, and I've kind of supplemented what I found here with some data in my own study. So, yeah, thank you for listening.